There you go, guys. Finally, F1 is back to the business. The cars are running again. We had the car launches, and this week we had the first week of preseason. Doesn't feel good to say these words. I'm entirely sure that it does. Welcome, guys, to my first podcast. My name is Tomasz, and I'm going to do all the report of the 2019 preseason testing. It was done in the circuit of Barcelona. It had 4 days from Monday to Thursday, and I'm here to do the report of the first week. And with this week was very important. We can take a lot of conclusions. So what did we do? We're going to start. Okay, before start, I just want to say this is my first podcast once again, so I'm not a pro on this. I'm just trying. I did some research to give the best information and my conclusions, my thoughts. And at the end of this podcast, I ask on Instagram your thoughts about week one and your questions. And I'm going to answer to clarify your mind. But let's start with day one. I think. Apart from the beginning of the morning, we had ideal conditions. I think we had ideal conditions all the week. Absolutely no rain. So if it doesn't rain, I don't know what Formula One is going to do or the team is going to do, because we're going to need a wet track to see the wet space. Maybe Formula One is going to wet artificially the track with a truck. I think they did in 2016. It wasn't needed in 2017 because it even snowed, but then the snow melted and we had a very wet track. I think it was just Fernando Alonso to set a time last year. So but now let's focus on 2019. That is this year. And once again, I think in a nutshell, in all week, in terms of weather, I think we had ideal conditions. But in day one, some drivers struggle in terms of track temperatures because it's winter testing, so it's very cold out there, and especially on the tarmac. And once again, the drivers struggle a lot to put the temperature on the tires. We could see that with Raikkonen spin, the first spin of the season, it broke out the red flag, but soon enough he was back on the track, and Vettel spun as well at the end of the chicane. And then we had Grosjean turn 3. It was in the same corner where he crashed in the 2018 Spanish Grand Prix. But I think all of this was due to the cold track. Sorry. So at the beginning, I was thinking when I saw these spins. I was watching, by the way, the stream. At this time I didn't watch all the streams all the time because I had school, I have to study and all that stuff, and it makes things difficult, unfortunately. But I saw this beginning part of day one in the morning, and I saw the spins, and it was due to cold track. But what I was going to say is that I was thinking that this year we had some rule changes more in the aero part. But we have new tires. Now it doesn't call the hyper soft or the ultra soft on the harder tires. We have the C1 to the C5 tire, whereas the C5 is the softest at all, and the C1 is the hardest tire of all. So I was thinking that Pirelli did some changes to the tires. I think they did because some drivers complained last year because of the blistering, especially Mercedes. They had a lot of blistering, especially on the Austrian Grand Prix and in the Mexican Grand Prix. Hamilton in the Mexican Grand Prix, that is one of the Grand Prix that he became world champion, by the way. He was always complaining with the blistering of the tires, so I think Pirelli hardly worked on that. And I was thinking that now the tires have an operating window of temperature higher, so I was thinking that the put temperature on the tires would be more harder, but I gave up of this idea because it was just cold track, so it wasn't just a factor. In race weekends we're going to have a warmer temperature, so it was just in the morning, and the track was green, wasn't rubber in. So first conclusions, Sebastian Vettel was fastest in this day, but no conclusions in terms of pace in this week because The preseason, the pace doesn't tell the whole story. So um, I think in terms of true pace, we're going to know after the first 4 rounds. So it's not going to be on the test and in Melbourne. We're going to see the real pace. Sorry, in the first 4 races because, for example, we're going to have Australia. Okay, it's an okay track, but then we're going to have China. I think it's the second race. We have the downforce, for example, of the second sector and the huge straight in the third sector. Or for example, in Baku we have the straight and some downforce areas. So and then we have Barcelona, where the teams probably all the teams are going to bring some upgrades to the cars because yeah, it is in Barcelona that the teams made the testing. So yeah, in Barcelona is where in the Spanish Grand Prix is where we're going to compare the real performance of the cars comparing to the pre-season performances. So yeah, it's not going to be in the test or in Melbourne that we're going to see the real pace of these cars. Remember that Fernando Alonso finishing P5 on the Australian Grand Prix, and yeah, the McLaren wasn't a good car at all in the 2018, always in the last places. So I think this Alonso example is a perfect demonstration. So it was a good day for Ferrari. Now talking about the teams and the drivers. And yeah, Vettel, 169 laps. It was the most active driver of the day. That's approximately 2.5 Grand Prix. So yeah, Ferrari grabbed a lot of data. And then we have the Mercedes, or Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton. They slipped some swap places during lunch. So yeah, but it was Mercedes, Haas, and Renault that swapped the drivers during this week 1. And yeah, in total Mercedes did 150 laps. So yeah, but for Racing Point wasn't very active at all, with only 30 laps. And yeah, Haas didn't start very well the morning, and as well for Toro Rosso. But yeah, in the afternoon things went better. But yeah, Racing Point not good at all, I can say, because yeah, not many laps, so not much data they wished. So, but I think it's normal because it's a new team, not 100%. But yeah, remember that in the first day. They didn't do many laps because they didn't had no shakedown because it was just a car reveal in Toronto in Canada, and yeah, that was it. So I think I can consider that the day 1 of the Force India, not sorry, of the Racing Point, the Sport Pacer Racing Point F1 team was just a shakedown, and yeah, that's maybe the reason of not doing many laps. So. Yeah, and once again, it's a new team, so not 100% because it has the same staff as the Force India had. It's just the CEO that is different, is Lawrence Stroll, but I think I'm going to talk about that further on. But talking about Haas, it was okay. I think it's not a huge surprise. I was expecting a little bit more from Haas, show a little bit more pace. But yeah, I think it's okay. And Toro Rosso also did so many laps, and I'm going to talk about Toro Rosso and Red Bull because of the Honda engine further on as well. But first, let's talk about Ferrari. Like I said, it was a good start, a strong start. They did a lot of laps, so it was a lot of data grabbed, and yeah, I know it's only day 1, but it's Ferrari going to do much better than Mercedes. Yeah, they did a lot better, but I have some answers to this question. 2 are from no, and 1 is for yes. So for no, I think yeah, Mercedes is hiding the game, and it's very normal in Mercedes. It's normal that Mercedes hide their pace. They were in the last places in the first 3 days, but then in the last day they showed some more pace. I'm going to talk about Mercedes further on in this podcast, but yeah, but. I think Mercedes is going to show a little bit more pace on the second week. Another no is because Ferrari, it was always strong in pre-season, but yeah, in 2016 it was strong. I think in 2017 as well, Kimi Räikkönen set the fastest time in one of the weeks. I'm not remembering at all. And in 2018, yeah, it showed a lot of pace in pre-season. But yeah, Ferrari, it's always strong in pre-season, but then the things are not like that. They didn't want any title. I think the car is there, you know. I think they have car for that, but I think now with these team changes in this year, with the entry of, for example, of Mattia Bonaro, can help with the team morale, and that's my yes answer. So I think Ferrari, it's a huge unknown, I can say. So, but yeah, all these laps from Ferrari can prove that they have a reliable engine, and I think yeah, and in last year they had an amazing engine with an amazing straight line speed, equal to Mercedes, I can say, and or sometimes even better, for example, like Monza. So I think in terms of reliability is good, and in terms of reliability as well, McLaren, very good job in the day one, finishing in second place with Carlos Sainz, and yeah, they did a lot of laps as well. So this is a good sign for Renault. Yeah, Sainz had a clutch problem in the beginning of the afternoon, but yeah, it was in the big exit, so it was much as a factor. So yeah, in terms of reliability, the Renault engine is looking very, very good. So maybe good signs from Renault in terms of engine. I don't know. I'm going to talk about the Renault, the car itself, the team itself. But yeah, in day one we had good impressions from Ferrari, Renault, McLaren, and even Red Bull, because Red Bull did as well a lot of laps, 128 laps with Max Verstappen. So yeah, this is a good sign of good reliability in terms of on the engine. They had a huge progress to 2017 in 2018. Yeah, we remember the Honda days in McLaren that yeah, not many laps during the testing in 2015, 2016 and 2017. The car always had problems, but now with Red Bull things are looking very good, and this is important to do a lot of laps. And now I'm talking as well to Toro Rosso, because both teams use Honda engines. So this is very, very good, because in preseason they have to do a lot of laps, lap after lap after lap, because by doing these laps they can force the components, so they make the components go to the limit, the absolute limit of wear, and this is good to develop the wear of the components of, for example, the MGK or the MGUH on the combustion engine. That I think it was the main problems of McLaren, that when had the Honda engine. So yeah, once again, in a nutshell, for Red Bull Racing and Scuderia Toro Rosso, yeah, a lot of laps is a sign of good reliability. Now is just keep this momentum to find limits and go forward, because Red Bull, as you guys know, he has an amazing chassis, the best chassis off the grid. We are talking about 2018. I don't know in terms of 2019. It's too early to take conclusions. So, but if they have the best chassis this year, and yeah, I believe that they have the best chassis. I think they can make good work, because the Renault engine didn't allow them to get race wins regularly, because yeah, the Renault engine struggled a lot for straight line speed, and it wasn't reliable at all. Remember, with Daniel Ricciardo at 9 DNFs in 2018 with Red Bull. So yeah, it's good that Honda can make some progress. And yeah, but Honda is doing a great job, I can say, because remember they had a good progress in 2018 with Toro Rosso. Remember when Brandon Hartley went to Q3 and qualifying P6 in the Honda home race in the Japanese Grand Prix in Suzuka. So this is very good progress once again. And yeah, if the engine is good, but yeah, Red Bull Honda already affirmed that there's going to be some engine penalties, but not much. No, it's not bad. I think you guys are understanding what I'm trying to say. But let's see if they can fight for the World Drivers' Championship and in the World Constructors' Championship. I think in the Drivers' Championship we can see maybe Max Verstappen. Pierre Gasly I don't believe, because this is his first year in Red Bull. So yeah, maybe the Constructors and Verstappen fighting for the title. But let's see what Red Bull can do with the Honda. And yeah, Gasly had some Honda engine experience in the Toro Rosso days, so but I think Red Bull is going to be more around Max Verstappen, and this attention to Max Verstappen in Red Bull was already being noticed in 2018, and Ricardo was noticing that, and he thought that it was better leaving to go to Renault. That is a great pace. But now talking about Toro Rosso. It was an okay year in 2018. They helped to develop the Honda engine to the Red Bull. So yeah, and the Toro Rosso, it was a very good day one as well. They did some laps, and in the next days got good results, but not good results at all because. Those best positions were done in low fuel cars, but I'm going to talk that further on. Let's see what Toro Rosso can do. Toro Rosso is not a team to be in front, you know. It's more a team to prepare drivers to Red Bull. So the objective in Toro Rosso is just it's a junior team of Red Bull, as the name says. So junior prepare drivers. So that's the main function of the Toro Rosso. So. Going back to McLaren again, they did a lot of laps. And remember, in the last few years, McLaren didn't do many laps. So maybe McLaren did a step forward. Is going to do a step forward this season. Not entirely sure, but talking about the other teams like Racing Point, Alfa Romeo looking very, very good. Alfa Romeo indeed a good start in day one, despite Kimi's off in the early morning in his first lap, and the engine failure that Antonio Giovinazzi had in the last day. But Alfa Romeo showing some major improvements, doing a lot of laps. So I think things are looking good for the cars with Ferrari engines. We had a Ferrari that had a strong start. For Haas, I could say it's okay, but I think it's better, slightly better, not huge, I can say, and Alfa Romeo doing very good. So I think the Ferrari powered cars are showing a very, very good pace. So let's see, in terms of engine, Ferrari can be a lot stronger, but we're going to know that with the time. And talking about now Mercedes and Renault, in the last place with the C2 tires, the second hardest tire of all, and we can say they are a lot conservative, and Mercedes as well, a lot conservative. Mercedes is always doesn't show pace in the first week, especially. So, but they are focused. These two teams, these two official teams, more focused in working the reliability of the cars, of the engine. So they surely they're hiding the game, and Mercedes is very famous for hiding the game. Remember, in the past few years, especially, I remember in the 2016 season, they were always hiding the game in the practice sessions, and Ferrari and Red Bull were always going faster and faster. But then in qualifying, Mercedes always taking in pole position. Remember in 2016. The Mercedes was unbeatable, I can say. Yes, Mercedes was very dominant. They got all the pole positions with the exception of the 2016 of the Monaco Grand Prix, where the pole position was taken by Daniel Ricciardo. But now going back to 2019, sorry, is this worrying? These teams, these official teams, remember, being so conservative. It's this last positions of these teams is worrying. They are lacking of pace. They are going to struggle this year. No, I don't think so. They are great teams. They are official teams, remember. Mercedes is the 5th-time world champion in terms of constructors. So they have a great base, and they manage the rule changes very well. Remember, in the 2014 and the beginning of the hybrid era, Mercedes started to dominate. Then in 2017 we had the larger tires, the more complex aerodynamic, I can say, and Mercedes kept the first place, despite Ferrari being a threat in the last 2 years. And I hope that becomes more than a threat, more a threat for Mercedes this year, and we can have a good fight in the last race in Abu Dhabi. So once again, yeah, Mercedes is a good team, great car, they are champions, and it's normal for Mercedes hiding the game. But for Renault, it's not like that. Renault doesn't hide the game, but they are starting to add the game this year, and they made a huge improvement since 2017. Remember, in 2017 the car wasn't good at all, but with the with the years, with the passing the seasons, Renault started to do huge improvements, and I think this year is not going to be any exception. But in a nutshell, I think we're going to see the real pace, not 100% the real pace, but they are going to start show more pace in week one. In the old days, they surely that they showed the true more pace, not the true pace, more pace in the last day, but. Yeah, but still they were very conservative. So now let's move forward to day 2. I spent a lot of time talking about day 1 because there were so much things to talk about in day 1. So the things are going to be, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the other days because it's normal that I talk more about day 1. But heading to day 2, Ferrari dominating again, but now with not Sebastian Vettel but with Charles Leclerc, the new man at Ferrari, did amazing season in the Alfa Romeo Sauber. So they did the times in the C3 tire, and once again the Ferrari team seems in a good shape. So and this is good for in terms of Ferrari confidence. When you lose a championship, when you make mistakes, the confidence decreases a lot, and it's good that Ferrari is fighting and they didn't give up, and they are going to go out to the track, do as many laps as they can, and bring a lot of data to develop the car as many as they can, because for Mercedes did as well a lot of laps. So in day 2, Leclerc was the fastest, slightly slower than Vettel, but it was the fastest still. And Mercedes very conservative once again, and but they did once again a lot of laps, and they are much lower than Scuderia Ferrari. A good day for McLaren, and now I'm going to talk about McLaren because there are things that I think they have to be cleared. Lando Norris was in P2. I don't remember. I don't have the times here. I have some writing here on my report. So I'm reading the things that I wrote during week 1. So Norris. It was a good day like Sainz. It was similar. I think they got P2. But it was with the C5 tire, remember, and Leclerc was with the C3 tire. But once again, Norris did with the C5 tire, that remember is the fastest tire, is the softest tire of all, and it was in low fuel because they did short runs. So it's not the true pace of McLaren, because I was seeing the race simulation times of McLaren, and they are not famous at all. So their performance, their results, the final results in terms of best times are not. Doesn't tell the whole story, but I can say it's a confident boost for McLaren. I don't know, but this can go to the conclusion that is McLaren a qualifying car, because they go on new tires, on the softest tires, on low fuel, high ERS deployment maybe, and they use always the DRS on the straights. Are McLaren working more for a qualifying car, being better on qualifying than on the race in terms of managing the tires, on the fuel, but focusing more on not long runs, and being more car prepared for qualifying sessions where the drivers give it all? So it's a question that I'm gonna let you for you guys, and let me know on the comments. But once again, the race simulation times weren't good. And now talking about Red Bull, not much to talk. We had Gasly the first day on Red Bull of week 1, and he had a half on the third sector, and he said he was pushing, and this is good, pushing the car, finding the limits. It all makes part of pre-season. And now talking about Renault, Ricciardo, he had that DRS failure. And let me say, talking about the DRS, it looks so big right now with these new rules. But DRS, maybe the flap is bigger and can create some more turbulent air, and maybe that was the reason of the DRS failure, but I don't think so, because the teams work on the DRS and where the air goes when the passes in the rear wing. So yeah, it was just a failure. I was thinking if the if the bigger DRS could be dangerous, because we saw that failure on Daniel Ricciardo. He spun on the straight, but he managed to not hit the barriers. But yeah, it was not a good morning for Daniel Ricciardo. Only 28 laps, but yeah, he was doing long runs, but that DRS failure stopped him to make more laps. He did before lunch, before swapping with Nico Hulkenberg, his teammate. He did some 2 or 3 laps, but yeah, that was it. And then in the afternoon, Hulkenberg did a good job. He did more laps than Daniel Ricciardo, long runs like Mercedes. And yeah, that was it for the day. And yeah, Renault, it wasn't bad at all. Maybe Nico Hulkenberg saved that day. So heading now to day 3. It was the day where the Ferrari dominance stopped, and it was Daniel Kvyat on the Toro Rosso, on the Scuderia Toro Rosso Honda, being fastest, and Alfa Romeo as well behind with Kimi Räikkönen. Sorry, it was Kimi Räikkönen. I was thinking it was Antonio Giovinazzi. Antonio Giovinazzi was in day 2 and day 4, but yeah, they were the fastest drivers. But remember, there were this doesn't give many conclusions in terms of pace, but in terms of relative conclusions. Between the two teams, I could take a conclusion. Alfa Romeo is faster than Scuderia Toro Rosso, I can say, because Kvyat set the fastest time with low fuel, and I'm going to say first like this: Daniel Kvyat and Kimi Räikkönen did their fastest time on C5 tires, the softest tires at all. It's the qualifying tire, we can say. They were both pushing, so maybe they were doing some qualifying pace programs or something like that. But Daniel Kvyat was in low fuel, so he did some laps and then he entered in the pits. And Kimi Räikkönen had surely more fuel than Daniel Kvyat, so his car was heavier. So what will we conclude here? Alfa Romeo is probably faster than Toro Rosso, and yeah, once again, Alfa Romeo is looking very good, and the drivers are happy. And yeah, I'm going to talk further on in the day 4 that McLaren, not sorry, Alfa Romeo did an amazing job. But now day 3, still talking about Mercedes. All again in the last places, I think the game again as Renault as well. And yeah, Bottas and Hamilton. Bottas was in the morning, I think. Hamilton in the afternoon this time. One of them did a one-race simulation. So once again, doing long runs and do a lot of laps. And it was a little bit concerning this time, because the Hamilton times in the race simulations were 2 seconds slower than his times during the race of the Spanish Grand Prix last year. And I thought this a little bit concerning, 2 seconds slower, because remember, in theory, these cars are with these new aero regulations, they are 1.5 seconds slower. But now in the already in week 1, we are closer to the 2018 times. We didn't beat the 2018 times, and this is a little bit concerning for Mercedes. Maybe there's too much confidence. They know that the car is fast and they are bluffing and do slower times on purpose. This is a little bit concerning, but at this moment I don't believe on Mercedes. I'm not going to say, hey, Mercedes is the slowest car and Ferrari is going to win. But then we came to the real season and Mercedes is going to maybe destroy us all and make us look silly. So yeah, I'm not going to say that Mercedes is very weak. It's the opposite, Mercedes is very strong. Like I said, it's a great team. And yeah, I was saying when I was talking about day 2. But now, yeah, I think that's all in terms of day 3. And now let's jump to day 4. That was the last day of pre-season testing, the first week. Remember that we're going to have another week of testing, 4 days. That is going to be from Tuesday to Friday. So Day 4. This was the day that the people that thought Mercedes was being too conservative. Mercedes definitely showed more pace with Valtteri Bottas in P4 and Hamilton in P5. Bottas used the C5 tires and Hamilton used the C4 tires, one compound harder than the C5 ones. Definitely they showed more pace, but they showed some weaknesses. I saw in the reports of Autosports, and I saw the videos, and I noticed as well that Mercedes showed some understeer on the fast corner. So I thought, okay, it's interesting. Mercedes is a good car in terms of downforce. It has good engine downforce. That's the key for being the best car. I was thinking very strange, a little bit of understeer. I saw in Hamilton's onboard some understeer, not very. It was more noticeable, not in the Hamilton's onboard, but in the TV coverage. We only had one lap of Hamilton's onboard. That was the lap that it was going very fast, but then Kubica, it was in the way. I'm going to talk Williams further on. As well. So can this be a problem? Is Mercedes struggling in terms of downforce, especially at the front with these new aero rules? We have for the guys that don't know what is understeer is, I can say is too much downforce at the front, and the car starts to go too much in front. And I think you guys are understanding what understeer is. But these new aero rules causing problems to Mercedes? This is a very good question, or is going to cause to all the teams? Because remember, with these new aero rules, the aerodynamics are more simple. So the cars are going to lose 1/3 of the downforce comparing to 2018. So maybe it's not only a Mercedes problem, but for all the teams. But I could notice the understeer more on the Mercedes side. So moving on, still on date 4, Renault, like Mercedes, they showed more pace. Hulkenberg topped the session with the C5 tires, and Daniel Ricciardo was in P3. I'm not remembering who was in P2, but now is an interesting thing here. Hamilton set P4 in the C4 tires, and Nico Hulkenberg topped the session with C5 tires, and the gap between these two drivers was 6 tenths. In theory, Pirelli affirms that the differences in times between the C5 tire and the C4 one, it's 6 tenths. So it's a little bit concerning. It's Mercedes once again hiding the game too much. Maybe the confidence is too high. So it's a little bit worrying. We can say that the Mercedes performance is the same as the Renault performance. This can be good if Mercedes is good. Is the top car. This can mean that Renault is the top car. Or if Renault is more car for fight for P3 in the constructors standings, means that Mercedes had a drop of performance comparing to 2018. It's a little bit unknown. But I can say no. It's probably no. Because I think in terms of Mercedes, there's a lot of pace to be found. So once again, Mercedes hiding the game. They are very famous to hiding the game, and I believe they're going to show more pace in week 2, and they showed in the last day. So I think they are going to show more in the week 2. It's just wait and see what is going to happen. But it's too early to take conclusions, I can say in a nutshell. So let's talk about a little bit of Scuderia Toro Rosso as well, and Alex Albon has a lot of F2 Formula 2 experience, but not he doesn't have a F1 experience, so he only has a shakedown if you're Renault with the Toro Rosso. And Toro Rosso focused more in talking about Toro Rosso now, by the way. Toro Rosso showed that made a lot of quick runs, they did more qualifying runs, quick runs, low on fuel, softest tires. But I think Toro Rosso knows what he's doing. just the drivers have to learn. We have a rookie and a driver that was absent for 1 year. That is Daniel Kvyat, by the way. So, but in a nutshell, I think for Toro Rosso, it was a very good week. Toro Rosso did amazing job, did a lot of laps. So this is good in terms of reliability, and in terms of reliability as well, goes to Alfa Romeo Sauber with Antonio Giovinazzi. A good day for the Italian team. Giovinazzi was the guy in the last day to put the fastest time. He did 158 laps, and that's a huge amount of laps. But in the final stages of the day, the Alfa Romeo broke down 2 times. But yeah, I can understand that the Alfa Romeo broke 2 times because 158 laps. That was the limit of the components, so I think it's completely normal that the car broke down, but this is very good because the teams had to do a lot of laps, not just to grab data, but to put the compounds to the limit and see, okay, where the MGUH, how many laps the MGUH, for example, takes, so to just... this is good for the compound saving and to have less grid penalties for component change during of the course of the season. And just to finish, I'm going to talk about Williams. I saved the Williams subject for the end because the team missed 2 days, and I thought better to talk about Williams in the end. So yeah, Williams missed the first 2 days because they the car wasn't finished, and yeah, the season I can say pre-season. I think the F1 season. I think we can integrate the pre-season. So the season to the 2019 here. So I could say the 2019 didn't start very well for Williams, missed the first 2 days, so that's a lot of time lost because they had to finish the tire. But let's not lose hope saying already that Williams is going to be the worst team of all. They are going to be 3 seconds off the pace like in 2018, and they are not going to score points, just score some 4 points. I think that's what they scored in 2018. So let's not lose hope, because I'm going to give an example that Karun Shandok on Sky Sports gave, and I thought really interesting. Bron GP, and that was the team that won the in his first and only here on Formula 1 the Drivers' Championship with Jenson Button, and the Constructors' Championship. They missed the first test, the first preseason test. Braun missed, and Williams just missed 2 days. But okay, this was just an interesting start, just to say, okay, let's not lose hope. Okay, so this was very interesting. So for the guys that say, okay, Williams is going to be a meh this year, let's not lose hope. Let's see if Williams can be a contender on the midfield. I think this year is going to be hard to know who is going to be at the red light of the field, the slowest car of the field. I think this year is going to be very competitive. And just to finish before going to your questions, talking about a little bit of the Euro rules, I think I'm going to do a podcast about these new rules later on, maybe after week 2, making the podcast of week 2 that I'm going to do if you guys want, and yeah, probably I'm going to do. And that was now we have simpler front wings. We don't have those things attached to the front wing that called the turning vanes. I think that's the name. Sorry if I'm saying badly. That caused the dirty air and stopped the cars going closer to each other. We could see that especially on the Australian Grand Prix when Fernando Alonso was in P5. We had Max Verstappen behind in a Red Bull, a much faster car than the McLaren. And he couldn't overtake because of the dirty air, very possibly. So here's the question: can the cars go closer to each other this time? Because we had some battles, especially on the first day. I'm going to give some first day examples. We had Hamilton versus Kvyat on the first day in the afternoon. It was in the last hour of the day, of day 1. And but I think it's not an argument, because the Mercedes is much stronger than the Toro Rosso. But now I have an argument that is more stronger. That it has more evidence. That is Verstappen versus Vettel. So Verstappen was behind Vettel. And yeah, the Scuderia Ferrari in terms of performance, we can say is similar to Red Bull. The difference is not that huge. So, and yeah, at the first view, looks like that the cars can go closer to each other. I recommend you guys to go check it out on YouTube. I think there's some videos of the cars battling, and I think we had more battles through the days. I think we had Verstappen with Sainz, I think in the last day, so I'm not entirely sure. So now let's go to your questions. I'm opening on my cell phone the Instagram to see your question. I ask you on Thursday to to let me know what was your questions, and I had some interesting questions here. So yeah, I'm opening here. I'm not doing pauses on this podcast and see the questions that you guys gave to me, and I can agree that were very good questions. So I'm opening here, seeing the questions and all that stuff. I'm going to see your thoughts about week one. I put two questions on Instagram. The first, your thoughts on about the pre-season of week one, and then your questions. And yeah, I said that we'll try to respond to those questions to clarify things up. So the first question comes from Sean underscore 789, saying that McLaren supposedly is performing well, and yes, I can agree, because McLaren did so many laps, and remember, in the last few years, I said previously on this podcast, McLaren in the previous years didn't do many laps. Remember in day one when Fernando Alonso lost his wheel, and then after that was just a minor incident. They didn't did anything. So maybe McLaren is back to not on top, but to regular points. Because it's sad to see McLaren way down the order. Historic teams with a lot of history, with a lot of points, a lot of titles, all that stuff. And yeah, remember that the last win of McLaren was in the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix. So yeah, 7 years, that's a lot of time without winning a race. And for Williams as well, they didn't win a race since the 2012 Spanish Grand Prix with Pastor Maldonado, that he had his first and only win on F1. But now going back to pre-season, and yes, I agree with you, Sean. McLaren is surprisingly performing well, and let's see what they can do. And now we had another question for MC underscore drifts. It's hard to tell who's out on front. Obviously Ferrari looks amazing, Red Bull looks reliable, and yeah, Ferrari, just giving a correction, Ferrari looks very reliable as well. Sorry, I can't talk, Jesus. Yeah, Ferrari looks very reliable, and they did a lot of laps, and Red Bull as well. So yeah, Ferrari and Red Bull looking very good. And yeah, and I agree with you. Let's see. It's hard to tell who's going to be out on front. And remember, we have Mercedes at the back, and Renault as well. So, and Renault is going to make surely huge improvements. And Mercedes is the championship contender, and it's the back. So it's very hard to know who's going to be on front. But let's see. So. Now heading to the third thought, he comes from J Lee 2812. Good signs from all the teams, and yes, once again, all the teams doing very well, doing a lot of laps. Not much for Williams and Racing Point. Remember that Racing Point did many laps, so it was a little bit unfortunate. But let's see if it can do better on week 2. Now, from underscore Mr. Point AM, disappointed with Mercedes. Looks like they are too confident, and yeah, I think that Mercedes is too confident. But if they are doing this, I think Mercedes knows what they are doing. Because it's a team with a lot of experience. Remember, so I think Mercedes is hiding something, and yeah, I think I don't agree with you, sorry, but yeah, maybe a little bit disappointed with Mercedes. Yes, I can say so, because way down the order, but too confident, I don't think so, because Mercedes, yeah, I think they know what they are doing. So let's go to another thought, and I think it's going to be the final one. I think nobody is running at 100%, so lap times are absolutely no important. Ferrari Agu 3, I think I read your name. Well, sorry if I didn't. So, and yeah, it's pre-season. Like I said in the beginning of this podcast, Preseason testing doesn't tell all stories because the whole story, sorry, because um, we're not going to take conclusions in terms of pace in the testing and in the first round. We're going to need 4 rounds to know who's the best team, who's in the midfield, who is the last team, and other things probably going to be at the rest of the season. That is going to be on the 4 rounds. We're going to have the Australian. That is an okay track. I think is not good for in terms of a comparison of paces. But for example, China downforce section on the second sector and the high speed straight where the DRS is open on the last sector, and for example the same things to Baku, the straight, and then in the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, where the testing is done as well, teams will bring updates to the car probably. Remember, for example, McLaren bring a new nose to Spain. And we're going to see the true pace after the Spanish Grand Prix. So it's just wait for these 4 rounds. So and during the Spanish Grand Prix, I think everyone is going to compare the times between the pre-season ones and of the proper season. So and I think in terms of thoughts, that was all your thoughts. And now let's go to some questions. So I had 6 questions. I'm going to be honest. I was expecting more, but thank you so much, guys. By the way, to give all these questions. And I have 3 questions from the same person, so I'm going to answer to whole because it's just six questions. It comes from Rocco. Point Rashid. So I think I saw I read your name well. Sorry if I didn't. I'm really bad with names. But 2019 World Champion. I would like to be Charles Leclerc. I would like to be Charles Leclerc, but it's so hard to tell because I think someone said that it's going to be hard to know who's going to be on front on the fourth session, and I'm not entirely sure, but in my personal, if who I would like to be world champion, one of the Ferraris, or even the Renault, that would be a good surprise. Imagine Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault, that change that shocked the whole world. With oh my God, he's going from Red Bull, a top team, we can say, to from Red Bull, sorry, to Renault. That is madness. But remember, Renault is making huge improvements. So imagine Renault on the top, and I wouldn't be surprised if Renault would be on the top of this year. So my question is answered. My final question is, I absolutely do not know at this moment. So another question: would you like to see more often on the podium? Maybe the Alfa Romeo Sauber. Imagine Kimi Raikkonen, and the Alfa Romeo Sauber is showing some good pace, but for podiums, I'm not entirely sure. But the Ferrari surely is going to be on the podium, and that would be a shock if they were on the podium, and I think that's impossible. But in Formula 1 everything is possible. And Renault as well, I would like to see Nico Hulkenberg on the podium. Nico Hulkenberg, remember, never had a podium in his F1 career, and now with these Renault improvements, maybe we can see one day Nico on the top. So it's just wait and see. And the final question of him: who would you like to see? Oh, it's the same question, mate. You did 2 questions, the same question. So, it was just 2 questions from Rocco Rashi. So I think I can say it was just 5 questions that I received. So, but still, thank you so much, guys, once again for all the questions. Let's move on to the next from Aitor Seto. Difficult year to Williams again. Yes, I'm expecting that Williams will struggle, but I think let's not lose hope and saying, once again, I was saying, oh, Williams is going to be the worst car, they're not going to score points. Let's not lose hopes, okay? So, let's see, Williams did many laps as well in day 3 and day 4, so it's not a good start. But let's see in week 2 if Williams can do a better job. So, let's go to the next question. From Jose underscore Javier 310. Ferrari champion 2019 or another bad year? And I don't know. In terms of don't ask me to some things about performances because I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I think Ferrari can battle. They had a strong start, but that doesn't mean nothing because we had Mercedes back at the back, so we can't confirm these things. So I don't know, man. I can't respond. I can't say that Ferrari is going to be strong and then Mercedes can destroy Ferrari, and then I would be silly. So I can't answer to that. So now next question, still underscore YT. Who was the surprise of package for you? To be honest, I think all the midfield teams, with exception of Williams and Racing Point. Williams, it was more in a negative way, but for example, McLaren, a lot of laps, and that was very impressive for me. And Ferrari did a lot of laps. Alfa Romeo as well, doing a lot of laps, especially on the last day with Antonio Giovinazzi. That is a rookie. So all these teams, for example, Red Bull and the Toro Rosso, more for the Red Bull side of the Honda engine. It was an amazing surprise. Do a lot of laps with an Honda engine that is not famous for do a lot of laps during pre-season. So it was a good surprise to see the teams going out on the track and do many laps, lap after lap after lap, doing long runs, short runs, doing everything they can to make their best car. So yeah, it was in general it was a good surprise from all the teams in general, not all the teams. And final question from Paul Matt, 16 official. What do you think of Leclerc will beat Vettel? This is a very good question. I have here on my report on the paper my thoughts about Charles Leclerc and of other drivers that probably I'm going to talk in the next week on the week 2 report, my next podcast probably. And yeah, now we have Ferrari. Let's talk. I'm going to answer your question. It's going to be a long answer, but I think let's see if you follow my mind. Paul Matt, I think that's your name. I don't know. I'm really bad with names. Sorry about that. But now Ferrari, Vettel and Leclerc. These guys had huge pressures, and I'm going to talk about Vettel. He's going to have a future world champion, his teammate. So, but he's in second season and first year Ferrari, and yeah, I'm going to talk about that further on. Yeah, Leclerc had an amazing progression. GP3 world champion, Formula 2 world champion. He absolutely destroyed everyone in 2017 in Formula 2. And amazing here in Formula 1 in his first year with Alfa Romeo Sauber, putting that car regularly on the points. Now imagine with Ferrari and Vettel thinking that. So Vettel maybe a little bit nervous about that, but let's see. And yeah, he has a championship to win. He lost the championship in 2017 and 2018. He has to stop. Someone has to stop Lewis Hamilton. I think Sebastian Vettel is the man to do that. And but let's see. But I think that's not much pressure in terms of Sebastian Vettel, because Scuderia Ferrari is going to be to give priority to him. But if Leclerc shows some pace, Scuderia Ferrari said that we'll let the guys fight, and probably Leclerc is going to put his elbows out when battling with Vettel and maybe can give some pressure to Vettel. But I think the pressure is bigger for Charles Leclerc, because we can't disagree that he's amazing talent, but the pressure maybe doesn't affect him. But I don't think so, because remember, Formula 1 drivers are humans, human beings. They have feelings, they suffer pressure. So I think he has a lot of pressure, despite being amazing talent. Yeah, Ferrari is going to be the Ferrari driver in the second season, and Ferrari is Ferrari. Remember, it's a team that has a lot of history. The first team in Formula 1, one of the first teams in Formula 1, and it's present still today. He's going to be, this is an awkward example, but I think you guys can agree, he's going to be on Jules Bianchi's place, because let's be honest, if Jules Bianchi didn't died on the Japanese Grand Prix accident, no, he had a crash and 9 months later he died but it's going to be if Bianchi didn't died, he would be alongside Vettel at this moment. So he's going to be on Bianchi's place. And remember, Bianchi was his friend, his cousin, his mentor, we can say. He put him on the races, and his father as well. The Charles Leclerc's father, that is dead as well, unfortunately. But he's in Formula One because of Jules Bianchi and his father, but more on the side of Jules Bianchi, I can say. So there's a mega pressure for Charles Leclerc, and I don't. He's going to handle that pressure. I'm not entirely sure because that's so many things, so many feelings, and once again, Formula One drivers are human beings. They have feelings. They suffer. They feel things, you know. So I'm not entirely sure from Charles Leclerc. So sorry, it's going to be hard to know. But I think Vettel is going to be superior than Charles Leclerc. But because he's in Ferrari since 2015, he has more years of experience. He's a four-time world champion, remember. And I think Leclerc is going to be this year a year more of learning to be on the front, you know. Battling with front runners. So I'm expecting Leclerc, for example, win the races, but fighting for championship and beat Sebastian Vettel, I don't think so. And Vettel had all these mistakes, and I think he learned from these mistakes. And I don't think that he's going to commit all these mistakes again in this season. So it's a huge unknown. But I think that was the podcast, guys. I think I will respond to your question, Paul Matt. But guys, that was the podcast. I think I clarified some things during this podcast. In a nutshell, I think in this week one we could taken a lot of conclusions, but not 100%. There's a lot of things to be discovered, and I think we're going to know more things in week 2. And remember, it's going to be on Tuesday, and from Tuesday to Friday. So. And surely that I'm going to do the week 2 podcast. I really enjoy to do this podcast, and I just want to thank to you guys. If you are now here, I would just want to thank to you guys for being here in this podcast. Really enjoy to do that, to do all this research. It's a little bit hard working to do this. The report on Instagram with the posts, with the onboards, all that stuff. That is a lot of things with school, and to try to balance things is hard, but the most important that is I like to do this, and if you guys like, I would be very happy. So guys, thank you so much for listening. Is not watching, listening, because this is a podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed, and but now it's time to say goodbye. My name is Tomas, and surely that I'm going to be back for week 2, but now it's time to say goodbye. My name is Tomas, and I'll see you guys next time, or listen, you know, it's a podcast, but I'll listen you guys next time. Goodbye.